I know a lot of people come to these things and they want to hear Teddy and everybody talk about, burying your man and beating the man. And, well, I'm the man, so I'm not going to be talking about that. But the day I graduated from college, I basically moved to Las Vegas, and I have spent every single day of my professional career in sports betting, and I love it. I love the industry. I do a lot of the same processes that handicappers do in order to do a lot of my job functions. We do odds creation, market creation, game integrity, fraud prevention. We have to not only take on the guys like Teddy covers, but I could tell you last November, it wasn't Teddy or Drew that were beating the crap out of us in the NFL. It was the general public betting the Dallas Cowboys, New England Patriots against the Cleveland Browns, against the San Francisco 49ers every single week, and just beating the crap out of us. So we have to take on those people as well, and it's interesting, and I never plan on spending a day outside the industry. So today we're going to talk a little bit about technology, where it was, where it is, how it affects sports betting, and how it can actually help you both as sports bettors or on the operator side. So when I started at what was Cantor Gaming, which is now CG Technology, the largest licensed sportsbook operation in the United States in 2011, the state of Nevada was doing about $2 billion a year in handle. 2017, we're going to do about $5.5 billion, maybe $6 billion. We've got a little extra boost with the Mayweather-McGregor fight and an exciting football year. We got the NBA Finals we wanted, so maybe we do $6 billion this year. So how does that industry triple in growth in a 5-6 year period? That's a huge growth spurt for an industry like that. And a lot of it has to do with technology. Cantor Gaming was the first company to ever launch mobile phone wagering inside the state of Nevada, and that is one of the bigger reasons for growth, not only amongst, on my side, the casinos, but as well as bettors. So, prior to that, it's not 20 or 30 years ago, let's go back 7 or 8 years, 90% of the bets made across the world were either over the counter at a casino somewhere or on someone's desktop at home. No one has desktops anymore, but that's how bets were made. And I could tell you that in 2016, almost 70% of the wagers we took were made on mobile telephones inside the state of Nevada, despite the fact that even, and that's a smaller market because you're dealing with tourists and people that are only coming in for a weekend. Regular bettors are making more than 75% of their bets now on mobile devices. And to the point of shopping around that Teddy said and having multiple bankrolls, it's completely changed the way that people bet, and it's changed the way that we have to handle things such as risk management and all of those things. I mean, consider the fact that you used to have to look at your screen, look at all the numbers, go log into your computer, log on, find an account, and then hopefully by the time you do all that, still get that number. Now at the palm of your hand, you can shop at numbers in-game, pre-game, props, everything on your mobile phone, and it's much more advantageous for you, the bettor. It's much more advantageous for us, the operator, because you, the bettor, can make more bets. But as the bettor, you can also shop quicker, find better lines quicker, and get down at the numbers you're actually seeing on the screen that you want to bet, rather than by the time you get there, them not being there anymore. So it's completely kind of revolutionized the way that we bet. And it's a big advantageous thing for you. So I would say, no matter whether you're betting with us in Nevada or whether you're betting somewhere else down here in Costa Rica or Europe, wherever it is, I would consider absolutely, getting multiple accounts and using your mobile phone. I mean, people pay their bills on their mobile phone now. You basically do everything on your mobile phone, and sports wagering on your mobile phone is probably the most advantageous way that a new sports bettor can get into it and shop around, find the best number, find the price you want on the games you want the fastest. I mean, another great example of it is injuries and information. When I first graduated in college and moved to Las Vegas, the first job I ever get, Mark will know, is at Don Best, which at the time was kind of the big odds disseminator, information and service provider back then. Considering where it is now, back then you would send people information out on the screen and the screen would light up and it would just go crazy. But with Twitter and stuff, information happens so fast now. LeBron James isn't going to play tonight because he has the flu. Somebody in the locker room tweets it, and sportsbook operators and bettors alike all get that information at the same time. How do you get the best number as a bettor? How do I make sure you don't get the best number as an operator? And that's where mobile phones come into effect, right? Being able to shop quickly, go to the book you want, find that price that's still available on an otherwise unavailable line is so advantageous in the long run. People say that the information age is dead because Twitter killed that information age because everybody gets information at the same time now. The speed of information is so fast. The general public is more informed than they've ever been before because they have so much information flow coming into them. You need to have multiple accounts, and you need to be able to use your mobile phone as your tool to be able to utilize them, as we do on our side as well. So I think, looking at some of the technology, those things are really important. And then we can look at some of the ways that we've advanced the sports betting products too. It used to be a sports betting operator, no matter how many products you offered, you basically offered them all in-house. And now it's no longer like that. When I started in 2011 with then Cantor Gaming, now CG Technology, this firm in the state of Nevada, if you wanted to do in-play wagering, they made you HD video record every single game, save those games for 7 years for auditing purposes. There's this huge storage fees involved. You had to have individuals doing games. Now we simply outsource companies' data in, and to do live play, plug it in, so we can, have several outside third-party providers for a lot of different products, integrate it with our system, and then you, the consumer, ends up having this massive wagering menu that you may not have had access to before. I mean, no matter whether it's in Las Vegas or outside Las Vegas, the amount of things you can wager on has done nothing but grow. It used to be in Nevada, you couldn't wager on Olympics or MVP or Cy Young or any of those. All those things are now approved, and that's a lot of wagering options to sift through for you, the bettor. And being able to do it at the palm of your hand is really convenient. And being able to find information as it comes in and comes across to you and bet it at the palm of your hand is really convenient too. Just the speed in which everything happened has gotten a lot faster. So, I think that's the biggest thing we have to look at in technology is everyone thinks about technology from our end and what we do, and they don't necessarily realize how important it is a tool to the bettor. Everyone talks about handicapping games, breaking down conferences and all this. At the end of the day, if you're betting bad numbers because you can't get a good number, it's going to be a difficult challenge. I can tell you on my side of the table, we've taken on some of the best bettors in the world, and line value over the course of time is very important, and your mobile phone as a tool can be one of your greatest allies in being able to get great numbers. Because it's just so hard otherwise, right? Everyone gets information at the same time. You need to be able to get there early and get those numbers. So those things are important. And look, there's a lot of people trying to take on that side. So anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm going to try to keep it a little shorter than my friend Teddy did, so that there can be a little more interaction, because I'm sure some of you just want to say, hey, bleep you, we're going to beat you and all that stuff, because I'm not the guy that's here telling you how to win necessarily. I'm just here trying to talk about how the industry is and where it is and what the future of it is. And where it's kind of moving to. And then also talk about entry into the industry, because I go to a lot of conferences and I hear people talk about entry into the industry, and people always talk about, how do I start betting? I do a lot of betting personally, even though I work on the other side of the counter, and I think both of them go hand in hand. Well, I'm a better bettor because of all the odds I have to make and the game integrity issues that I watch and fraud prevention and watching what some of the sharpest bettors in the world bet every day and why. And I'm probably better at my job because I bet. We encourage our employees to bet, because the more they bet, the more likely they are to recognize a bad number, an abnormality, because they're betting. If they have a little incentive to bet and look at numbers all the time on their spare time, then they also have the incentive to recognize when there's abnormalities and stuff. So the two kind of go hand in hand. And I always try to tell because we want young, smart people in this industry. The more young, bright, enthusiastic people we have in the industry, the better the industry's future is going to be. I love this industry. I've never worked a day in my professional life outside this industry. I have no intention to ever work a day in my life outside this industry. And it's a very lucrative industry on my side of the counter as well. I love Teddy. I love some of these smart guys in the counter. The sports books win at the end of the year. And we win for a reason. And obviously, there's a lot of opportunities on that side. So look, yeah, at the end of this too, I'm happy to talk to people about different entrance ways, whether it be marketing, whether it be odds making, whether it be front end management. There's a lot of different ways into the industry, and being on that side of the counter will also help your betting as well. I mean, seeing what people bet, this guy seems so good, but he's losing. Why? What's happening? What's really happening in the marketplace? And speaking of the evolution of the marketplace, we're kind of talking about the future of sports betting and where it was. When I started in sports betting, there was simply this term known as contrarian, right? If you bet the under and the underdog in every game, you could almost break even or win because the public was so heavily on the favorite, they were so heavily on the over, especially in football, both college and pro, that you simply needed to be contrarian and you would probably do better than most, right? But those days are gone. The general public is now much more informed than they've ever been. They have Twitter on their phone and they have all these things and they know LeBron's out just as quick as you or just as quick as me, the sportsbook operator, because there's people in the locker room tweeting it out. So everybody knows this information. The speed of information's faster. The amount of people in it is much greater than it's ever been. I always compare sports betting when I first started it to things like drinking, or look, marijuana's legal in Nevada now, but would you walk into a boardroom on a Monday morning, what would you rather have in your hand, a joint, a drink, or a sports betting futures ticket? And 99% of the people are going to say a sports betting ticket, regardless of the fact that they're all legal, right? So sports betting has become more and more generally accepted as no longer in the dark or have this bad stigma around it. And because of that, you have more and more really smart people entering the sports betting marketplace, both on my side of the table and on the other side of the table as well. So it's important that you have as many options as possible, that you're using as many tools as possible. And that's changed the whole entire evolution of sports and what we've seen, from what it used to be. So, I think it's an interesting market moving forward. A lot of the things we do now, too, are much different. It used to be we just put up the games. Now we put up Super Bowl-style prop sheets for every single isolated football game. Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, 50 to 100 props on those games. There's so much work that goes into it on my end because that's what the consumer demands at this point. It used to just be, look, basically everybody just bet point spreads and totals. And people walk in now and we have a big group of really sharp bettors who don't bet point spreads or totals on games. They bet props on games because when I have to make 100 props on games, chances are I can't be perfect on all of them. And as a bettor, you don't have to bet all 100 props. You just have to bet the 2 maybe that I'm wrong on, right? So, to Drew's point, talking about how people specialize now, on my side of the counter, we don't have that opportunity, right? We have to take bets on every single game and every single prop, but you as bettors do. So I would say, look, it's not even just a matter of people isolating themselves down to, hey, I'm only going to bet this conference, or I'm going to focus on small or WNBA or Arena League football. You can isolate down to particular markets. There's a lot of people who just simply run analytics and algos against certain futures markets or prop markets and are very successful at it. One of the new advances that we've seen in sports betting recently is the popularity of player props in our marketplace. 5 years ago, player props didn't exist. Outside the Super Bowl, the playoffs, it was this tiny little marketplace. Now we offer player props on almost every single big NFL game during the year. All the big-time college football games have player props on them. We have season-long college football playoff props for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, who's going to have the most yards. And that marketplace has really become enthusiastic due to the amount of money that people put into the fantasy sports market. And the two, while on a collision course, are still separate things, right? Fantasy sports and sports betting are still kind of on a separate path, although it's obviously converging. And a lot of those people cross over and do both. They use their fantasy sports abilities to beat player prop markets in sports betting, and they use their sports betting abilities to beat fantasy sports markets on that side. So, we're kind of seeing that evolution of sports betting where people just don't bet games anymore. They expect a much wider menu. They do it on their mobile telephone, which also leads to more bets as well, right? And it's led to the advancement of in-game wagering in the United States. Everybody talks about the in-game wagering marketplace in Europe, And in Asia and some of these other markets, in Europe, it could be as high as 70% of the wagers are made in play compared to only 30% made pregame. I could tell you in the United States, especially in the state of Nevada, where we do a lot of handle, $5 billion is a lot of money, it's less than 5%. And that number 5 years ago was less than 2% of the in-play market. It just wasn't there, right? The sophistication wasn't there in the marketplace. The amount of available markets to bet wasn't there for American sports. The sports weren't as conducive to in-play wagering. Think of a basketball game and how many runs there are in play. It's so fast. The tempo of the games is a little faster than soccer or tennis, the more popular European in-play sports. We're seeing that number go up every single year because we offer more options to the players. We offer more games. We basically do every game. We did the game last night. We will do every single NFL preseason game, full in play, full props in play to go with it. And that marketplace is starting to grow. And that's a marketplace 5 years ago in the US. Everyone talked about how the sky's the limit with it, but it didn't really exist in reality. Now this year it could be like 5 to 8% of our marketplace. We think in 2 years it'll be 20%. Because it's the fastest growing marketplace we have. So it's a fast moving market right now, right? We're looking at the expansion of sports betting potentially in the United States, and people estimate that market now at around anywhere between $300 and $500 billion. And think of it, we have a monopoly in Las Vegas in the United States, and we do $5 billion. Less than, around 1% of the marketplace in the United States is done in the state of Nevada. So there's a lot of money wagered in the United States, and there's a lot of expanding marketplaces, and it's an exciting time. I don't want to go on forever, so I'll open it up for Q&A and answer any questions for you guys.
Just gonna grab the microphone quick. So just raise your hands and Alex will come over. Thanks, guys. You ready to yell it out?
Gotcha, good one.
Use machine learning to set the lines for both live as well as game lines. And to follow that up, how quickly does that factor into the lines?
So odds making is an interesting thing, right? We have an odds making team here. Every single book doesn't have an odds making team. That's sort of a myth, right? Only so many people can set the market. Here's a good example. So in football, we're normally up first or very close to it, right? For college football and NFL. Our NFL lines go up Sunday while the games are being played for next week, which is a real risk for us because people could get hurt during this week's games, never mind next week. But we don't use machines for all. Let me answer your question specifically. So for pre-game lines, we don't. So part of being risk management and dealing with risk management, whether you're in Nevada or Costa Rica or anywhere, is understanding your audience and what they bet. So obviously we have algorithms like everybody else, and the algorithm spits out a number. And then what we try to do is what we call anticipatory action, which is simply where do our customers normally bet? So okay, we have a really huge Lakers fan base. We're in Las Vegas, so we know if the number it's Lakers versus Clippers, and the algo spits out it should be Clippers 7, but we know we're going to take nothing but Lakers action. We're dealing 5 or 5.5, right? So there has to be a human element into every single number that we open, whether it's props, whether it's pregame lines, whether it's sides, totals, everything. There's always a human element in it. Look, the algo spits out football, New England Miami at New England should be 51.5, but we know it's going to be a blizzard, and we're going to take nothing but under action, so we're going to open at 46.5. There always has to be a human element into odds making. But some of odds making here's another example, some of it we don't use, right? So baseball overnights is a really good example because we have so many public bettors in Las Vegas, and when they come to the window, we don't offer overnights for baseball, only baseball. It's really only the sport it tends to be an issue with. We have a lot of times customers, whether it's on the app or whether it's over the counter, they want to bet the A's today. They go bet the A's, then they realize they bet them for tomorrow, not today. It ends up being a bad customer experience. So what we decided to do as a business decision is we don't open tomorrow's baseball until today's baseball games start. So if the A's play today and they play tomorrow, we're not opening tomorrow's A's game until today's A's game start to make sure it's a good experience for the customers. But because we're doing that in baseball, there's no sense in us overemphasizing our algos in baseball because at that point there's a marketplace that's already established. So we could say, okay, our algo says the A's should be minus 140 today. Marketplace says the A's should be minus 155 today. We're probably going to open at 150, shade it toward our number, but we can't use our number because the marketplace is already established. And if we open 140, we're going to be a scalp number, and we're just going to take that side anyway. Go ahead, sir.
I think I've got the mic. It's working a little bit. I'm curious, how much time do you guys spend prepping right now for the potential that Supreme Court's going to legalize sports gambling on individual state levels? You said the handle in Nevada is a tiny percentage of what the overall market is. Is that something you're actively preparing for, considering the case is going to be heard in October and could be something that's decided as soon as by next football season?
It's something that we're not only preparing for, but have been for quite some time. For example, the two biggest racetracks in the state of New Jersey, we own the rights to operate at one. If sports betting in New Jersey was to turn on today, we own the rights to operate at the Meadowlands. We run a contest there now. We basically purchase the rights to operate should it be legal within a certain time frame, and then one of our competitors owns the rights to operate at Monmouth. So it's not only, hey, getting ready for what this entire marketplace means from a, odds and bet, bookmaking and risk management standpoint, but it's getting ready from an operational standpoint of how it's going to be too, right? There's a lot of speculation about a lot of these places could be racetracks, casinos, lotteries, brick and mortar only to start, and that's a completely different, operation than a mostly mobile or kiosk-based operation. So we're doing a lot of preparation for it, actually. And what people don't realize is in the United States, unlike a lot of these other markets, the one big thing that we talk about all the time from an odds-making perspective that you don't really see in the marketplace now is that when New Jersey, let's use New York for an example, let's just pick two states. So New York goes legal and California goes legal. Right now, because of Nevada and the offshore market, what you see is a pretty much consistent marketplace. So if the Jets are playing the 49ers, you won't see anybody in the marketplace more than a half point off of each other, whether it's Costa Rica, whether it's Las Vegas, because you end up just getting scalped, right? But on the other side of this, what happens when New York is legal and California is legal? Can you still deal the same number in New York on the Jets as you do in California, and in California on the 49ers as you do in New York? So I think there's some regional biases that we don't deal with now in U.S. sports betting that'll be interesting to see if we do deal with once it goes legal nationally.
Hello? Well, I'm from New Jersey, and it's going to be there first, so I don't really like New York. What do you think the probability of it being in New Jersey?
I try not to get into these type of political questions too much, but I'll say this about the sports betting landscape in the United States as a whole, and I'll compare it to prohibition. Prohibition in the United States was probably a dumb law, but it was a law, and when prohibition existed, you couldn't drink, and if you did, you were breaking the law and you couldn't do it. Couldn't buy alcohol because there wasn't any alcohol to buy. Whether the law was dumb or not, it was a law. Sports betting faces the same challenge right now. They have a law in PASPA that's it's difficult to overcome. It's pretty much as clear and straightforward as prohibition was to alcohol, PASPA is to sports betting. And I think, I hope New Jersey's first for you. I think the repeal of PASPA happens before the legalization of sports betting.
Can you discuss a little bit about how books set second half lines versus full game lines, adjusting the second half line by what's happening in the game or by the book's individual, full game handle?
So second half lines, and I'll go ahead and throw this out, and is one of our biggest vulnerabilities as a sports book. Second halves are one of our riskiest situations. It's one of the more advantageous situations for the players. So to your point, yes. So while we tend to see a pretty consistent marketplace pregame, especially on football, this is a football betting conference, so you don't ever see a book be 7 and another book be 3 on Alabama versus Florida State. It just doesn't ever happen. But due to the immense amount of handle that are now being taken on these college football games, at halftime is where you can see a significant difference. I might be $1 million high on Alabama in that game. Somebody else might be, 7 figures high on Florida State. And if that game's, 14-7 at half, so it's right on the full game number, people are going to have real different risk liabilities to the second half, and thus you're going to see really different numbers in the second half where you wouldn't see different numbers pregame. So it's certainly a challenge. It's much more of a challenge to manage risk second half than it is pregame. Plus you have so much time pregame. So, college football numbers, we open Sunday night and you have all week to manage your risk. A big bet comes in Wednesday, 6 figures. I have all week to figure out what we're going to do with it, how we're going to handle it, how we're going to, hey, we're 7 figures high on Bama right now. I only want to be $500,000 high. No problem. I have all this time. The game goes to half. I have 12 minutes to make a number, put up a number, hang a number, take bets, and try to manage risk. It doesn't always work out perfect.
My first question is, how do you sleep at night taking our money? No, I'm kidding. What league do you dread the most putting out an opening number?
So here's a good question. So a lot of people would think it would be leagues like arena football, WNBA, CFL, leagues like that, because they're so sharp leagues, right? The people that bet them religiously tend to beat us. I mean, I could tell you that we have sharp people that beat us at CFL, they beat us at WNBA, but we're not really scared of it because you're going to put out a number, you're going to limit how much they can bet. The scariest numbers in the world are football numbers, and they're not the opening numbers. They're that. So you put up a football number on Sunday while the games are going on, but you have much lower limits. But on Tuesday, you open those games up for full limits. It's that first day where you start taking 6-figure bets, that's the scary day.
Sort of a similar question, but of the 4 major sports plus college football and college basketball, which sport has the highest hold for you and which is the lowest? And are there any small markets that stand out as having either particularly high or low holds for you? Thanks.
Sure. So NFL actually has the highest hold percentage for us, and the reason is there's so much handle and liquidity in NFL. So everyone wants to bet NFL. I mean, we literally, think of Nevada. Look at us. In our best year, we did well over $1 billion a handle, and probably 50% of our handle comes from college football, college and professional. It's so popular. And because there's so much liquidity in the marketplace, you could take 7-figure bets because there's so much liquidity. When someone comes in and they want to bet, $200,000 on a WNBA game, the reason we don't take it isn't because we don't want to or because we're scared of the people. It's because there's no liquidity on the other side, and your liquidity would be to that entire bet. Because there's so much liquidity as a bookmaker in the NFL and in the college football betting markets. Last year, there were more weeks where we had bigger handle on college football Saturdays than NFL Sundays. More times than not, we took more handle on college football Saturdays. So anyway, to answer your question, because there's so much money in that marketplace, we're always going to hold more to it. Anytime there's more liquidity, it's always good for the house.
How do you protect yourself from game fixing, or how do you know that a game is being fixed, or what?
So one of the interesting things is, I'm Chief Operation Officer of CG Analytics, and I'm Vice President of Business Development for CG Technology. And in my role in CG Analytics, we're one of the few companies in Nevada, and the few in the entire world, really, who have a full team, who has as an operator, also has a full analytics team with a staff dedicated to do fraud prevention and game integrity. And basically, it all starts with abnormalities, identifying abnormalities. I'll say this, there's no sure way to stop it, but I think we do a better job than anyone else because we actually have a team in place to look for it. But at the end of the day, here's the myth about that. If you were a poker player and you played 1,000,000 hands of poker, you're going to take some of the most horrific beats you ever took. And it doesn't mean that the dealer was cheating, it just means you took some bad beats. And if you bet on enough sporting events, you're going to see some unbelievable stuff happen. Look at Oklahoma State last year. They lost the game they won. The game was over. They won the football game. And it went on a loss as their record. Things happen that are really bad in sports that make you think that has to be fixed. 99% of the time, it's not. A referee made an error, a player made an error, a coach did something stupid, player did something stupid. We put a lot of time into fraud prevention and game integrity, and more often than not, it's not fixed, really.
You talked about sometimes hanging bad numbers. In your experience, what's the worst feeling you've had when suddenly all the money's coming in and it's on the side and you suddenly realize what's going on here? We don't have full information, or we've hung a bad number. Is there a game or a couple of games you remember where a situation like that happened?
Yeah, so here's the bad thing about it. Or here's the situation we're in Nevada. So some of the other global books and markets not inside Nevada say that you go to put up a guy at 3-1 and you accidentally fat finger it and put him at 300-1. You just send him a little message. Sorry, bad number, no problem. In Vegas, if we deal that 300-1 instead of 3 and you come in and bet it for the max, I have to honor that bet. You bet it, I put the number up. And those things happen. People make typos, people make mistakes, and those are the most frustrating and scary when you try to deal a team or a guy at 3-1 and someone fat fingered a couple extra zeros, and now it's 300-1 and you're just hoping it doesn't get home.
I got a question.
Sure.
Like, how do you guys determine? Oh, okay. So do I need? Okay. Like, leading up to the week, say like Tom Brady, for instance, is minus 14.5 Patriots at the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Leading up to the week, he's fine. You know, Sunday, 10 a.m., gets a stomach bug, he's out. How do you guys determine the difference in the point spread, like when you take it off the book to come back, like with such a big player like that being
That's
out?
a great question. And I love that question for this reason. Tom Brady, LeBron James, Bryce Harper, whoever it is, they're not worth the same every single game. I've gone back with this conversation with many risk managers, book managers, bettors, and they all say, what's Tom Brady worth to the Patriots when he's out? It depends. Are the Patriots playing the Jets this week? Because they probably don't need him to beat the Jets anyway. And if they were up 28, they might pull him in the fourth. You know, what is LeBron worth, period? Is he worth 9 points? He has been. We've seen LeBron be worth as much as 11 points in a game. But I've also seen him be worth as low as 3. So what's he really worth, right? Everything depends on the situation, who they're playing, what's the situation in the game. So it's actually different every single time. So you can't put a true value to every player for every team that's just synchronized through every situation. The ones that are more scarier than the Tom Brady ones are collegiate sports, because basically you may have a quarterback who's Riley Ferguson, let's use Riley Ferguson at Memphis. Great quarterback, second year, is going to throw 40-plus touchdowns this year. The guy coming off the bench might be me. That's not good. That's where you kind of run into issues, right, is in collegiate sports. You know who Tom Brady's backup is, right? It's Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what you're getting pretty much. You can kind of have an expectation there when, if Riley Ferguson comes out and I have to come in, that could be bad. So college tends to be much more difficult as far as players than pros.
Hey, keep it going for Matt Holt, man. Wasn't he incredible?
Thanks, guys.
Man, thanks so much, man. That was
Yeah,
wonderful,
thanks,
man.
cool.
It was so insightful.